Welcome everyone to the Read and Writing Corner. This is the non-spoiler review for Ecstasy by Jekyll and Frank. I am Leanne, your host for this episode, or whatever you want to call it. This is actually part of a series called The Shadow Dwellers. So, yeah. Now about the series. The Shadow Dwellers live in a realm of darkness and sensuality, where order is prized and sin must be punished. At one with the darkness, the mysterious Shadow Dwellers must live as far from light-loving humans as possible in order to survive. What made me read this book? It was by Jekyll and Frank, the author of the Nightwalker series, so of course I had to read it, because I loved that series, which I haven't read on this channel yet, but I will, eventually. So, the blurb. At one with the darkness, the mysterious Shadow Dwellers must live as far from light-loving humans as possible in order to survive. Yet one damaged human woman will tempt the man behind the Shadow Dweller's throne in a dangerous desire. Worlds couldn't keep them apart. I also have her world is toxic to him, and so is their attraction. Among the Shadow Dwellers, Trace holds power that some are willing to kill for. Without a stranger's aid, one rival would surely have succeeded, but Trace's pressured death is less surprising to him than his reaction to the beautiful, fragile human who heals him. By rights, Trace should hardly even register Ashla's existence within the realm of Shadowscape, but instead he is drawn to everything about her: her innocence, her courage, her lust, sensual heat. After a terrifying car crash, Ashla's townson wakes up to find that the bustling New York she knew is now eerie and desolate. Just when she's convinced she's alone, Ashla is confronted by a dark void who draws her deeper into a world she never knew existed. The bond between Ashla and Trace is a mystery to both, but searching for answers will mean confronting long-hidden secrets and uncovering a threat that could destroy everything Trace holds precious. Ashla went against what she wanted for her friend and sister, only for it to cost her everything. But she will soon realize that he had put her on a path to meet the man of her dreams. Trace was a man with convictions and a sense of duty. However, he meets someone that makes him desire more. So the setup of Trace and Ashla were done well. Each was given enough time to understand them and what drove them to take action the way they did. Their motives were exposed for the reader to understand them. The rest, not so much. The characters react to the situation not in the least the way I thought someone would. If I was stuck in a strange place, I would panic and have a meltdown for weeks. The genre is considered to be paranormal romance. Did this live up to my expectations? Yes. It was exciting to read, especially when I realized it was part of the Nightwalker series. It's connected to the Nightwalker world. I did not know that. And when I found that out, I was like, oh my god, this is so perfecto! Perfecto! Which character did I relate to the most? Ashley. Doing things for others, even if it brings me out of my comfort zone. I'm just like that. Which secondary character stood out the most? Malaya, for her fierce nature in the face of danger. What was more important? Characters or the plot? The characters, because of the overall plot arch in the series. It's like the characters are always more important than the overall plot arch because it takes part separately. There are 3 voices in this book. Should you go and read this story/series? Yes, you should read it if you enjoyed reading her other series, The Nightwalkers. It is in the same world, and I'm so down for that. So down. So, you should vamoose. I just realized I hear my cat in my closet. You should vamoose if you don't want to be spoiled. And leave me a like, comment, or a lovely subscription as you go. Alright, so there are a few lingo words that need to be explained before we get to the rest of the review. Shadow Dwellers, creatures of the night. Sunlight is deadly to them. Aja. I think that's a term of endearment for those that are familiar with each other. It's not really explained, but that's what I've come to associate that term with. Lost. A human lost in another realm that can only be accessed by the Shadow Dwellers and humans in comas. Normally they can see nothing and do not have sense, and they just wander around lost. Nightwalkers, demons, a race of people living in the night. Realscape, the human world, where we are, or the real world. Shadowscape, a shadow version of the real world. In this realm, there are no people unless they are lost. Everything they touch and move is reflected somehow in the real world. There is no sunlight or light at all in it. Like, if an entire store gets destroyed because two shadow dwellers are fighting, then in the real world, like, that store is also destroyed, but a different reason is for it. Because obviously they don't know why it happened. It just happened, like maybe a gas explosion or something. And that's how they deal with it. A lot of people, in the book, it says that, like, you know, if a person moves something in the real world, we're like, oh, we have a ghost in their house, and that's how they explain it. Fade. This is the ability to move between the realscape and the shadowscape. Shadis, the language of the shadow dwellers. Drena. I believe this is a prayer, because it's not really explained. So I'm going to assume it's a prayer because he says Drena and then goes on like he's saying a prayer of some type. The same with the Aya, a word that's used. Maybe a curse word. It's never really explained in any sense. Itsume. I'm going to assume this is the name of the male chancellor's visor, because that's what the male chancellor calls Trace, who is his vizier. You also have Kayatsumi, which is what the female chancellor calls her vizier. Sainted, two people that belong together, connected through some type of energy. Li. We actually get an explanation of this one because Ashley was like, what is that? What does he mean? What are you saying? And he's like, it translated into your world, simple terms, it means sweetheart. But it's a reserved word for affection only for those that you have affection for. And to use it as an insult could result in your tongue being cut out. Then you have Majan. I think that means father because Trace only uses it with the man who raised him. So that's what I think.
I'm here. I'm trying to find my hoodie.
Shadow skipping, the ability to move between shadowscapes, such as teleporting. You know, he's basically teleporting through shadows. This world has Nightwalkers, Shadow Dwellers, Vampires, Minstrels, Lycanthropes, and humans in it, but we haven't met none but Nightwalkers, Shadow Dwellers, and humans, of course. But Trace does say that they're, you know, because he's trying to eliminate what Ashley could be when he finds out that Ashley is not human. And, well, when he meets Ashley, he's like, what are you? Because you're obviously not human if you're doing things, but she's actually half human. Half Shadow. Alright, so the main characters and side characters in this, we'll start with Malaya. She is a female twin chancellor that took over her people in the coup d'etat. Her twin brother, the male chancellor, Tristan, helped her. Well, they helped each other. Then you have Trace, the main male lead that falls in love with Ashley. He is the vizier to the main male chancellor. He actually uncovered a plot to do another coup d'etat on the twin chancellors, which everybody doesn't, a lot of people don't want because they have peace now, you know, with their people, and they don't want that to go down the drain. Then you have Ashley Townsend, a half-human, half-shadow dweller that lived in Realscape not knowing nor understanding where her healing ability came from. Her family thought she was the devil's child. Her ability gives her the wound that she heals. Her mother knew more than she let on. She just never told Ashley. Valerina is a shadow dweller that kept a place for her people to rest at as they traveled around in New York City. Valor was a traitor that almost killed Trace if not for Ashley's healing ability and that Trace killed. Rika, the vizier of the female twin chancellor, you don't really actually get to meet her very well, but besides the fact that she's tracking down Trace, Xenia, the female bodyguard of Tristan. And then you had Gwen, the male bodyguard of Malaya. And it's weird in their culture for the bodyguard to be the opposite sex of the chancellor. Then you have Magnus, the high priest for their people, the one that forges weapons for their people, and the one that raised Trace. He also does not dress himself, bathe himself, eat or drink his food and water first. That's what Kari, the handmaiden, does. That's picked to serve the high priest in everything from clothing him, bathing him, tasting his food and drink before he is allowed to have any of it, and his sexual companion. Which means, even though they weren't sainted, they're meant to be find sex together, you know, enjoy themselves together, and they weren't allowed to seek outside. But Magnus never once enjoyed her in any way, shape, or form, and she actually tried to poison him to force him to copulate with her, and he still didn't. And instead, she made him turn to rage and anger when she mentioned that, hey, look, your son violated the women's dormitories with Ashla and, you know, copulated together in there. And he's like, arr, and they find out that she's part of the traitors within, because she was convinced by a traitor to poison him to make him do what she wanted, not realizing they would actually kill him in the end. Killian, the guard that everyone must go through to even get into the same room as the Chancellors, jokes with Trace. Buddy. Sophia Townsend, mother of Ashla, she was enticed to cheat on her husband by a shadow dweller when she got pregnant with Ashla. She knew Ashla was different, but had hoped she did not inherit anything from her father, so when Ashla showed off her skills, she tried to exercise the evil out of her. Without explaining anything. She didn't want to admit that, you know, Ashla was not her husband's child to anyone, not even herself at first. Magnus is actually the one that got that out of her when she went to go visit, because she was probably hoping that Ashla would die in the coma because her daughter, the one she had with her actual husband, Christine Townsend, died in the crash that put Ashla in a coma. Acidia, we don't really actually get to meet her, but we get to learn about her in a brief flashback as well. The woman that had captured and tortured Trace for 11 months before the book started, trying to force him to betray his people in a civil war, and it actually crippled him for a while. So he was like a major player. Is a major player. So he, being missing her anyway, is crippling. Gideon, the demon, or rather Nightwalker, that healed Ashla after she had taken in the poison from Magnus. He also informed everyone that Ashla was pregnant with Trace's kid, and they didn't even realize it. There are 3 voices within this story. Those are Sophia, Trace, and Ashla in the third person. My favorite character was Malaya because she wanted to protect Gloon from dying. She had seen a feature where he is dying on his knees in front of her, and she doesn't want it to ever happen. My most disliked character was Kari. She was so desperate to copulate with Magnus, and then she went as far as poisoning him to try and get it. It was told in chronological order with appropriate language, except for like the flashback for Trace being captured and tortured in a dream he had after he had been rescued from being in the shadowscape. Because being in the shadowscape after a certain amount of time leads the shadow dwellers into a euphoria, and it can be damaging. So there was foreshadowing in the beginning when it spoke about actually hitting the drive around during holidays because of the risk of accidents. There were others about danger and a threat from within. The suspense was there in whether Trace would live, if Magnus would live, and if Ashla would live, as each of their lives had been put in danger. The title of the book meant staying in the shadowscape leads to the euphoria of ecstasy to the shadow dwellers. What stood out memorable was how jealousy can lead to bad decisions that cost someone's life. My favorite passage from the story is all he found himself caring about was something crafted far more beautifully than some piece of steel. He was convinced that she was made from light itself. So that's Trace when he's reflecting on why he doesn't really care about his father's weapons that were made for him. But Ashla. My favorite quote, "When you are well," he continued hoarsely, this is Trace talking, "I'll ask him to join us. If he agrees, then I'll beg you to become my blessing, my child's mother, my permanent heart." So that's what he says. It's part of what he says to Ashla while Ashla is dying from the poison that she took from Magnus. He realizes that he loves her and wants her to be with him forever, and that he wants his father to join them. What I thought about the ending of the book. It was a good ending. I love that Ashla and Trace are finally a happy couple with a baby on the way, even though I think that's a little fast, but hey. They didn't mean for it to happen. I am hopeful for Magnus to figure out why there are traitors trying to take out the twin chancellors after a long battle of civil war to put them into place. What book did it remind me of? The Nightwalker series by the same author and the Midnight Breed series by Laura Adrian. This book is as part of a series called The Shadow Dwellers, and there are 3 books in this series, and apparently it's also connected to the Nightwalker series, so there's like 6 books in that one? Yeah, 6 books in that one. I read this at 4 because of how well the characters and world building drew you into the world. And that's it for this. So if you think it deserves a like, comment, and a lovely subscription, and I'll have you guys drop it down below. I will see you next illusion.